test satellite launch.
Now, 3 minutes past the top of the hour. We're getting down to a drum roll. It's getting close. It's getting very anxious here at the Weather Channel, and I'm sure it is for John Doyle, who's coming to us live from Cape Canaveral. John, we're waiting on pins and needles. What do you got for us?
Dennis, we're within the last 2 minutes of the countdown. We have been in a built-in hold for about the last 10 minutes, and that's when all the systems, internal and external, are checked to the nth degree. The good news is that the weather is a go, the range is a go, the tracking systems, the satellite, and the Delta rocket all go. All systems are green now. The power has been switched to the internal systems now, and the final status check has been made. We've gotten a launch ready from Jim Womack, who is the NASA Flight Command. We've got a launch clearance from the range, so that means we're just sitting on ready here now. And even that boat that was out there in the area where the rocket booster would land in the ocean has been moved too. So I think we're just about as good as we can look at this point. In fact, some of those heavy clouds that seem to be building up a little behind us have begun to clear out too. You see on the rocket is the result of a battery of spotlights rather than the setting sun, although that is happening too. I'm going to hush right now myself and let you listen to Delta Launch Command as we near the final countdown, the final few seconds before the launch.
Right at the opening of the window.
Minus 15, tapping is going.
Coming up on T-minus 10 seconds now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Main engine start, and we have ignition. 6 solids are lighted, and the vehicle has cleared the tower. Pitch program is in. Roll program is in. T plus 10 seconds. Engine response to the solid rocket motion is good. Main engine burning in a very satisfactory way. Pitch programs all look good. Heading down range now with no problems. Solids continue to look good. Attitude disturbances are very small. Approaching now the region of maximum dynamic pressure. All continuing to look good on board the vehicle. 8 miles altitude, 5 miles downrange, velocity 2,100 miles per hour. Coming up now on the completion of the burn.
As it's taken on off, we lost it very quickly in the clouds, but it was as impressive as I certainly thought it was going to be. Everyone here is just about as happy as you would expect. So we'll continue to keep an ear now on the progress as it continues downrange, just to make sure things are still okay.
Very few attitude disturbances. Very smooth flight, all 3 solid rocket boosters and the Delta first stage burning very smoothly. A minute and a half now into the launch of Delta 179. Very minimal attitude control disturbances. The solids all look good. Main engine burning normally on the first stage.
John Doyle, this is Dennis Smith in our studios in Atlanta. How did it feel watching and finally get off the ground after sitting there in anticipation for the last couple of days?
Solid rocket burnout, very clean burnout. From our vantage point, Dennis, we're about a mile away from the actual pad where the rocket was launched. Took about 5 seconds for the sound of that rocket to reach us, and it sounded like thunder rolling over the old Florida Delta here. And it was as impressive as you can imagine. Just delighted, and we assume at this point, unless we hear something else from Delta Launch Control, that we have a successful launch. Now, assuming that on Saturday at about 1:56 in the afternoon, they will fire the Apogee kick motor when it reaches approximately 25,000 miles above the Earth, and that will put the satellite itself into the circular orbit. And then later on, Goddard Space Flight Center will actually make the call as to when it will go into service for an indefinite period. The good news is that this satellite, as opposed to the one that we lost, about mid-1984 is a combination of filament bulb and LED bulbs for the imaging. And that was the problem that we had when we lost the pictures. We could no longer successfully track the hurricanes in the Atlantic, and that's why we had to move GOES 6 a little to the east and a little to the west, depending on the seasons. But this one should take us well into the next decade, sending pictures of the Earth's weather systems every 30 minutes. We've been depending on that old GOES 6 satellite for the past 2 years. It has been in service, by the way, longer than any other weather satellite since GOES 1, launched in the early 60s. Today's satellite, with a combined filament bulb and LED imaging system, again, about 7 years. The main engine cutoff has now been confirmed a little over 3 minutes after liftoff.
That's the news that we hear from John Doyle, coming to us live from Cape Canaveral. And it is good news for us here at the Weather Channel, and it will be good news for you as our viewers, because this means we'll have 2 weather satellites in space, a better vantage point of the situation all across the North American continent, out through the Atlantic, and eventually, as we move GOES 6 back into place in the Pacific, better vantage point of the Pacific storms moving into the west. This is all good news for us. And again, there's what it looked like at 6:05 Eastern Standard Time, the vantage point from Cape Canaveral, a successful launch, and continues to be at this point in time of GOES H. As soon as it's in place, will be GOES 7. This is sort of the tip of the iceberg, though, because it will take an elliptical, kind of an egg-shaped path around the Earth for the next couple of days, and then settle down over the next 30 days to its final position, its resting place at about 22,237 miles out in space, sitting over just about Norfolk, Virginia, over the equator, and that'll give the vantage point, a better vantage point of the eastern half of the country into the Atlantic. Good news for John Hope here at the Weather Channel for hurricane season coming up June 1st. We'll be glad to pass along all the fine satellite vantage points we should have for you coming up in the next weeks and hopefully years to come here at the Weather Channel. Now, to focus in on what's going on all across the country down to your hometown, we now turn it over to your local weather. Thank you for joining us during this launch of GOES 7.